that I am willing to listen to the still small voice in me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Kim and Paul. That was just beautiful. All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Moving back to the center. It was, never centered, always returning to center. That's the story. Well, thank you all for being here. What a delight to see all of you, and it's I'm grateful to each and every one of you, and I'm grateful that we have this opportunity to come together, because there's a real power in our coming together. I came across a story recently. I was a member of a certain church who previously had been attending services pretty regularly and stopped going. And then after a few weeks, the pastor decided to pay him a visit. And it was kind of a chilly evening, and the pastor found the man at home sitting before a blazing fire. And guessing the reason for the pastor's visit, the man welcomed him and led him to a comfortable chair over by the fire and just waited. And the pastor made himself at home but said nothing. And in the silence, he contemplated the dance of the flames in the fire and around the burning logs. And after some minutes, the pastor took the fire tongs and carefully picked a brightly burning ember from the fire, and then placed it to one side in the hearth all alone. And then he sat back in his chair, and still and silent, and the host watched all of this and in quiet contemplation. And as the one lone ember's flames began to flicker and diminish, there was a momentary glow, and then its fire was no more. Soon, it was cold and dead. Not a word had been spoken since the initial greeting. And the pastor glanced at his watch and realized it was time for him to go. He left, and he slowly stood up, and he picked up that cold ember and then placed it back among the middle of the fire. And immediately, the ember began to glow. As the pastor reached the door to leave, his host shook his hand and said, I really thank you for the visit and for the fiery sermon. I'll be there next Sunday. Well, spiritual growth is something that no one can do for us. We can only do it ourselves. But I'm absolutely convinced that it's not something that we can do alone. We don't really do it in a vacuum. And the reality is, we actually need others around us to help us in our spiritual journey. And no one can walk the path for us. But I'll tell you, it makes it a whole lot easier when you're traveling with others along the path, doesn't it? And that's one of the beauties, I think, of us coming together as a spiritual community. It's one of the beauties of us coming together as a congregation. So it's been increasingly, this week I wanted to share with you something that came to me. And one of the things I want everyone to be aware of is that just kind of some facts. And one of the facts is that we have been unable to pay the rent on this space for this month. And I want us to really think about and be conscious of what is it that will help us to move past this circumstance or situation. And so I have been praying about this and listening, and I'm always kind of referred back to a work that has been a great inspiration for me in my life, and times and circumstances where I've had challenges. And there's a chapter in the book, Spiritual Economics, The Prosperity Process by Eric Butterworth. How many of you have actually read this book? I think a few of you probably have. If you haven't, this is absolutely one of the most life-changing books I have ever read in my life. And I highly recommend that you pick this one up. You can get it on Amazon as a Kindle, or you can order it in a hard copy or soft copy. It is just life-transforming. And there's a chapter in here specifically called How to Reverse Financial Adversity. How to reverse financial adversity. And so I want to share with you some insights and some awarenesses and some principles from that work. Because as I think about these principles, it occurs to me that the title of the book could simply be How to Reverse Adversity. Any kind of adversity, whatever adversity we're dealing with, whatever adverse experience or circumstances or difficulties or challenges we're dealing with, these principles actually work the same. But this particular one is about financial adversity, and it seemed really apropos. So I went back and began to read it again, and I realized it's something that we really can, as a spiritual community, embody and to take on. You see, we have manifested a circumstance and a situation here. We as a spiritual community. Now, if you're here for the first time, whether you realize it or not, I know this may seem strange to you, but you actually are part of that as well, because you're here. You're part of that collective. We're part of us coming together. And so we're grateful that you're here, and you're a part of helping us to shift and create whatever it is that we really truly want to experience. And so we're grateful for your energy and your consciousness here as well. So Eric Butterworth in this chapter says it is being increasingly acknowledged that economics is basically a psychological phenomenon. That government agencies may release statistics and charts indicating fluctuation of the workflow and business activity and interest rates and the gross national product. Very impressive. Conveniently, nothing is said about the cause. See, this is because it is a mystical process, dealing with the trends of the thoughts of we, the people. And that's exactly what economy really is. It is our collective thinking. It is our collective ideas. It is our collective belief systems. And so whether it be our national economy or if it be our UHA economy, it is a result of our collective thinking processes, our collective consciousness, our collective energy. See, the economy, as far as anyone is concerned, will always be to us about what we make it, how we decree it, and what we expect it to be. This is what Eric Butterworth is pointing out. So one of the things he talks about is that, oftentimes in different conversations, we find ourselves talking about things that we don't necessarily want to create more of, don't we? And we talk about and we look at and we focus on what doesn't seem to be present. And the more energy we put toward what seems that is not present, we actually are creative energies and beings. We are spiritual beings, and we are participating and drawing to us more of that magnificent experience of not having what we think we want. It's part of the law of attraction. I think that term actually is a bit of a misnomer, because I don't think it's a law of attraction, because to me that kind of implies that it's drawing something from out here to here. It's really more of the law of creation. And to me that's more of drawing forth from within our own being and our own nature and letting it manifest and unfold through our own energy and our own consciousness. So it seemed important to me that we look at and focus on and contemplate what's the consciousness that we have and what we're holding. And if we come here on a Sunday and we're focused on all of the empty seats, then guess what? We're getting to manifest more empty seats. It's true. That's the way it works. And so what I invite you to do when you're here is to really get a sense of really experiencing this community in a sense of fullness, We'll talk more about that. One of the things Charles Fillmore says is that we must realize all the while, however, that whatever we put as seed into consciousness, into the subconscious soil, will eventually bring forth after its kind, and we must exercise the greatest caution so that we do not think or talk about insufficiency or allow others to talk to us about it. As we sow in mind, so shall we reap in manifestation. And so, part of my lesson title is, what is your vibrational alignment? And I have to ask that question to myself, of course. What is my vibrational alignment? What am I aligning with? And I have to be honest with you, there are times that I have not aligned with what I wanted to really, truly experience. And I think that's probably true of a lot of people in the world. I think it's true in terms of our own individual experiences as well. I came across this quote from the Daily Fillmore, and it had a nice little image on there, and and the image had these words. It said, "Your mind is a garden. Your thoughts are the seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds." Well, I'll be honest with you. I've had some weeds in my garden that I needed to really do something with. I needed to be willing to pluck those out and to change them and to really focus in a different direction, different consciousness, different energy. Eric goes on to say, he quotes, there was an article on the front page of the Wall Street Journal some years ago that said, "Positive thinking is the way out of our economic malaise." I think that's true in any situation and circumstance. Shifting our focus, shifting our awareness, shifting our consciousness is a creative power in and of itself. It went on to decry the excessive pessimism that is now engulfing us. Well, I think about that in terms of what really is going on in our world today, because I see and experience a lot of excessive pessimism. Now, the question really is, how much is excessive, of course, but but I would suggest to you that we're still collectively creating circumstances and situations as a nation, and we're doing that in our own individual lives. We're doing it with our family and friends. We're doing it with our bridge club. We're doing it, and so part of what he's pointing out is we want to really look at what is it that we are participating in. One of our key unity principles, the fourth one primarily, says that our thoughts are creating our experiences in life, that we believe that thoughts are creative. Well, I want to say a little bit about that, because thoughts are not the whole story. It's important to understand that that is kind of a synopsis of the creative process, that as we think, that's what we are going to be participating in creating. Well, I believe that's true. However, it leaves out an important, significant component, and that is our emotions, our feelings. We are really actually, in many ways, creating from a subconscious level based upon what we are actually feeling in the moment. And we have a tendency in our world to feel based upon what we are seeing and experiencing out here in the world. We have a belief system that says, "You made me feel this way." You ever heard that idea? Yeah. This thing made me feel really, no. You know, we're kind of taught that from a time we're very young, that, oh, so-and-so made me mad. And so-and-so, made me angry, it made me sad. So-and-so hurt my feelings. Well, that's not really the truth, is it? The reality is we have feelings, and we actually have an ability to change those feelings. Now, some of those are conditioned, don't get me wrong. They are actually sometimes just triggered and they're unconscious. And part of, I think, our spiritual work is to learn to become more conscious and aware of those triggers, and learn how to notice when we get triggered and make a different choice. One of the things I'm learning also is from a wonderful work called Whatever Arises, Love That. It's from Matt Kahn. I've quoted it a few times recently. And when you notice something rising up within you, the practice is to send love to that part of you that holds that thinking and that feeling. And he says it's kind of like we each have these little children inside of us, and each one of them has a little different energy. And it's kind of like they're all lined up to try and get that love from us. And as we begin to love each one of them, we're not only healing our own inner children that are holding on to those belief systems and those thoughts and those hurts and those wounds, but we're actually healing the race. We're actually so connected with each other that when I heal something within me, it actually helps the world to heal. It helps the race to heal. In Psalms chapter 1, verse 1 through 3, there's a great prosperity lesson, Eric Butterworth says. He says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of the sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and this law, his law, he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by a stream of water that yields fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers." And so the psalmist, Eric says, clearly states that if you refuse to agree with the gossip of negative people, the counsel of the wicked, and keep yourself in tune with the divine law of prosperity, then you can be certain that substance will flow as easily as substance flows to the tree planted by the river of water. It's a very important realization. So I thought about this idea of the counsel of the wicked. I don't have to go very far to find that counsel. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. Because the counsel is not necessarily what's going on out here. The counsel of the wicked oftentimes is that little inner voice, that naysayer, that doubter, that part of our consciousness that's always saying, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but, when we start to move in a positive direction. There's a little voice inside, and Julie's in a coaching and training program that she's really loving right now, and one of the things they call it is a critter brain. We all have a little critter brain going on inside of us. We've called it monkey mind. We all have a little monkey mind going on. So we don't necessarily have to look very far to find out whether we are sitting at the counsel of the wicked. Because the reality is we all have some of that inside of us, don't we? And the question is, are we sitting with it? Are we agreeing with it? Are we holding those thoughts and beliefs, and we're putting energy into those, and we're making those what's really valuable and important to us? Are we letting our creative power be focused in a way that we are actually focused more on what we don't want than what we want? Eric says the great discovery, the new insight and truth is that consciousness is the key to all things which happen to us. Certainly the key to our prosperity. And so the starting point in changing the life from financial reverse to an experience of abundance is the realization that you can change your life by altering your thoughts. And you begin by taking responsibility for your own life. And as long as you're hung up on or paranoid thoughts such as, it is what they are doing, it is what's happening in Washington, it's what's happening in office politics, or the IRS is harassing me, then you cannot find help of any kind through truth. So I want to share with you, some years ago, I found myself in a situation. It's funny how we say things, isn't it? I found myself. I did find myself in many ways, but I found myself in an experience of financial adversity. And I was actually in a situation where I really had not nearly enough income coming in, And I can remember walking down the street, and this was a situation where I was really about that far from being homeless, seriously. And I remember walking down the street, seeing a number of people who were homeless, and thinking to myself, wow, if something doesn't change, that's where I'm going to be. And I did some praying about that, and I went back and read this chapter again, and I realized that something that had to change was me. Because I was really in a place of fear, really in a place of focusing on what I didn't have, focusing on what I had lost, focusing on all of the problems, and projecting into the future being homeless. And I was seeing myself there. It's like, well, that's a great practice of visualization, isn't it? I mean, so listening to this and paying attention to it gave me the insight and the awareness that my way of thinking was exactly what got me in that circumstance. And if I continue in that way of thinking, it will continue to keep me in that circumstance or make it even more challenging. And it's not until I was willing to stop and really spend the time of focusing on an awareness of the divine as my source and see myself in a place of well-being, in a place of experiencing life in a positive way, experiencing having what I needed, and feeling safe and comfortable. And as I did that, it's amazing how things began to click. This is a time when I actually was not in ministry at the time, and within about a week, I got calls from 4 different ministries asking if I would apply for their ministry. It was really something. It happened just like that. I mean, just that quick when I began to really shift my thinking. And things began to change. Things began to change immediately. Abraham Hicks is work that really speaks to me. And as I said earlier, the law of attraction, I think, is a really valuable understanding of how things work in the world and how things work in our consciousness. And consciousness, they use the term vibrational alignment. And I like that term, actually, because I really do think it is an emotional energy, an emotional vibration that is set up by our thinking, but it is the energy of the vibration of our emotions that's actually the attractive factor. And consciousness and vibrational alignment are really synonymous. When we talk about consciousness and unity, we talk about having a prosperity consciousness. How many of you heard that term before? Having a prosperity consciousness is really having a thought, an emotion, and a belief system, and an energy that is actually putting out a knowing of the abundance of spirit and the universe, and holding that and doing that as a practice on a consistent basis. Abraham, through Esther Hicks, says, when you are out of vibrational alignment, there is no action that will solve the problem. Let me say that again, because it's an important understanding. We spend a lot of time and energy thinking, what can I do? What can I do? I got to go do something. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Right? Sound familiar? Yes. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And my suggestion to you is stop it. Because it's not as much about what you do as where you do it from. And until you get clear with where you're doing it from, what you're doing is actually going to be contributing. And so unless you are really sitting still and holding that energy and that vibration of already having the bounty, the beauty, the health, the wholeness, the well-being that you truly want to experience, unless you're holding that consciousness and then listening to your guidance about what's next, then what you're doing is you're coming from that energy of not having. And the energy of not having creates more experiences of not having, doesn't it? Does this make sense? I thought it made sense to somebody. It certainly made sense to me. And it's a good lesson for me in life. So life is fundamentally a matter of growing and growth. One of the things Eric says, in every attempt in life, there must be the possibility of success and failure. You see, we live in a world of many cross currents of consciousness. if we're honest, we will admit that we are not always able to sustain positive attitudes in all of our circumstances. True confession here. I'm not always able to do that. Negativity sometimes floods the mind, and there seems little that we can do about it. And thus, for one reason or another, things sometimes go wrong. Perhaps it's a job that hasn't worked out, or maybe it's a sudden need for financing in a tight money market situation, or an unexpected loss and are heavily dependent on investment. See, every attempt in life, there must be the possibility of success and failure. And we must have the stability and the perspective to deal with both success and failure in a spiritual poise. Isn't that a great awareness? I love that line. Dealing with success and failure in a spiritual poise. So as I really have been reflecting and thinking about and meditating on what's going on for us here in this community, it occurs to me that there is a beautiful, powerful experience and lesson for me in this, and I think probably for all of us. And that is to love ourselves through it. That whatever seems to come up for us about circumstances and situations, we're not dependent on the circumstances and situations. And one of the things Eric says is to remember this phrase that is throughout our Bible. It came to pass. It didn't come to stay. It came to pass. And so circumstances in and of themselves are temporary. And they are not, our life is not determined by our circumstances. But our circumstances are determined by the consciousness and the energy and the vibration that we are aligning ourselves with. So there's a divine mind counterpart for every human need, Eric says, and there's an answer for every problem, substance for every financial requirement, a job for every willing worker. Some years ago, I had the opportunity of being at the opening of of a temple in Virginia, the Lotus Temple, which is a temple that was dedicated to all the world's religions. And when Swami Satchidananda, who is a wonderful spiritual teacher, was asked about when they were starting to vision this and pray about it and how they were going to build this, someone asked, well, where's the money going to come from? And Swami Satchidananda says, wherever it is now. And it's an understanding and awareness that, yes, there's a flow, and it's going to come from wherever it is now. But ultimately, it comes from one place. It comes from one source. It comes from the divine through multiple channels. And I believe that's true for our congregation. When I was meditating on this, it occurs to me that the solution to financial adversity is financial well-being. Now, that may seem kind of simple and trite, but if you really think about this, we must practice the feeling of financial well-being in our lives in the middle even of the appearances of financial adversity. Now, you may say this is putting your head in the sand. Well, I'm going to suggest to you, no, it's taking your head out of the sand. Our head is in the sand when we're focused in the financial adversity, when we're putting our energy and attention toward what seems to be missing. And one of the things Abraham says is that if something you want is slow to come to you, it can be for the only one reason. You're spending more time focused upon its absence than you are on its presence. Let me say that one more time. If there's something that you're wanting to experience in your life more of, the only reason it's not there is because you're putting more energy into its absence than you are into its presence. So let me translate that in terms of so many things in life. That's true of health. We're putting more energy on not feeling healthy than we are on feeling healthy. It's true of love. We put more energy in not feeling loved than we are on loving. We're putting more energy into, and if it's finances, we're putting more energy in what we're seeing we don't have than what we have. I've talked about this in terms of, with some of the leaders in terms of our attendance. When we put more energy on the empty chairs and on the full ones, guess what? We're going to have more empty chairs. So I want to acknowledge every one of you that's in a chair right now. And I want to tell you how much I value and appreciate you, and how beautiful it is to see and experience you here, and to feel connected with you, and to feel the uplifting of the embers of our consciousness as we come together, and understanding that we are creating an amazing opportunity of becoming and seeing ourselves even more as the spiritual beings that we truly are. And I want to finish with that awareness and that idea. We're going to move into our meditation time, and our meditation is going to be a powerful manifesting process. So we're going to have a song, which is one of my favorites, and then we're going to move into a process of manifesting our good. All right. Let's take a nice deep breath as we move into our meditation time. As we relax and move into a place of stillness and peace, we open our hearts and minds to the presence of the divine in us, in each other, in our coming together in this time of stillness. And in your mind's eye, what I invite you to do is to imagine yourself experiencing being grounded. Imagine and see your an energy flowing through your body all the way down into the earth. And just like roots going down into the earth, feel that connection with Mother Earth. And feel those roots going down and connecting with all of the richness of Earth, of the minerals, of the maybe even gemstones, and of all of those solid, tangible, valuable things of Earth. And know that there's only one presence in all of that it's all a part of the divine as well. Feel your grounded connection with the earth, and then at the same time now see and imagine a beautiful, brilliant light going all the way up to the top of your head. See it, and see yourself now floating above the earth, looking down and seeing this beautiful, brilliant blue marble that we all have the blessed privilege of being a part of. And now see yourself moving all the way to the center of the universe. See yourself centered in the divine spark of all creation. Feel yourself immersed in that, as Abraham calls it, the vortex. In unity, we call it the secret place of the Most High. And feel yourself in that place. And in that place, we're going to make a command, a pronouncement. Some call it an affirmation, but I think it's even more than that, because it's a releasing and an affirming, all combined. And we're going to do it for Unity in the Heart of Austin first. And it goes like this. I don't know how Unity in the Heart of Austin has financial well-being. I only know it does now. and I am fulfilled. So let's take the first part. I don't know how Unity in the Heart of Austin has financial well-being. Let's say that out loud, will you? I don't know how Unity in the Heart of Austin has financial well-being. I only know it does now. And I am fulfilled. And just let yourself feel that feeling of fulfillment. Feeling and knowing that it is already so. And let's affirm this for yourself also. I don't know how I have financial well-being. Together? I only know I do now. And I am fulfilled. I don't know how I have radiant health. I only know I do now. And I am fulfilled. I don't know how I have so much love. I only know I am loved now. And I am loving now. And I am fulfilled. And you can use this for whatever it is that you would like to experience more of in your life. And let's, in your mind's eye, imagine and see yourself moving back, still connected through that beautiful light from the center of all creation, back here on this earth, in this room, in this chair, and just see the energies of Spirit from the center of the universe pouring through you, all the way down into the earth, surrounding all of those amazing, wonderful, rich elements of earth. Bringing it with you into this room, this time, this place, and let an energy and a feeling of fulfillment completely penetrate you. Feel what that feels like, to feel that well-being, that radiant health, that love, and know that it is so now. And let an energy of gratitude come in your heart, that it's already so. It is already so. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, Blessed Spirit. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Be back in this room, this time and place, holding that energy and knowing it's done. Thank you, God. And so it is.